So, as we last week we were looking at portions of Revelations, and I think we got to about fourth verse maybe. Fourth verse is, John, to the seven churches which are in Asia, grace be unto you and peace from him which is and was and which is to come, and from the seven spirits which are before the throne, and from Jesus the Messiah, who is the faithful witness, etc. You see how that avoids any mention of physicality. The whole witness is about the spiritual. It has nothing to do with the physical being. And what this is actually saying, and I don't know whether I'm repeating myself from last week or not, but if I am, it's okay, I guess. The idea of grace and peace being presented to the churches, the seven churches of Asia. The seven churches, Sheldon on, because I want him to talk about that in a moment, because he sent me a text pertaining to that. It's talking about a complete consciousness. And I believe that the idea of Asia has more to do with Eastern thought than it does geographical location. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And the grace and peace is talking about balance, and it's talking about a calmness in the midst of disruptions. When we look at this from a purely spiritual perspective, we began to see, in order for us to be in rhythm with those things that are disruptive, or those things that promotes imbalance, when we become one with those things, we have lowered ourselves. We lowered ourselves to become one with material essence, as opposed to dominating that material essence. Because the reason I say that is because what we call chaos are things that presents itself in a disorderly fashion in this material world, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you allow yourself to be torn, or allow yourself to allow a lot of noise to be inside of you, you become agitated as a result of it, you have become one with that chaos. Mm-hmm. And in order for you to become one with that chaos, you have to lower yourself beneath your spiritual essence. Because if you are in balance with a wound, if you maintain your spiritual essence, then the peace that is already present with you always prevails. Did you get that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It always prevails. So we have to, in some way, be very, very conscious of the imperative nature of being in balance. And no one can put you in balance. No one. You do that yourself. Regardless of what someone say, and you've done it before. Sheldon, I want you to talk about the seven churches in a moment, okay?
Okay.
You and all of us have done it before. Someone say, "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good." And hell is raging inside. Mm-hmm. So that person who asks you if things good may be able to talk you down, but you have to be a willing subject. If you're not willing to accept the energy that's being presented, you will stay in that chaotic state. I want to be made, or I don't want to be the bigger person, or I'm tired of being a good guy. You see,
Yeah.
we do that in order to maintain that sense of chaos. So what John is writing is speaking to spiritual balance, and what John is writing is speaking to the 7 attitudes, or the 7 attitudes that, or the complete, I should say, complete attitude. Because 7, when I say 7, we talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about 7 in terms of the complete spiritual attitude that is necessary for us to maintain unicity with the Creator. That's what I'm saying. And let me say this, and that's where most people miss it when they talk about Sabbath or Sabbath. That most people miss that. Sabbath is not about stopping to worship. Sabbath is about stopping to become more aware of. Because if worship is submission and you have not submitted, you certainly are not going to do it on Sabbath. It's about being submissive to the ideas, thoughts, and concepts. It's about being submissive to the principles of the kingdom. It's about being cognizant of the who or the what that you are. And what is much better term than the who. Because the who of what we are is what keeps us in trouble, as opposed to the what that we are. So, Evelyn.
Okay, name represent character, right?
What name talks about character, it talks about light also.
Okay, so in this instant, John means what?
John is talking about praise.
No, oh, okay. So John is
Means
praise.
Yeah.
Okay, so praise, can you put that into what's?
Well, if you are aware of the praise that's necessary for you to bring balance to your life, then these concepts become more apparent to you.
Okay.
And they're always readily available. The question is whether or not you want to put them into practice. Keep in mind, I think one of the terms that we probably need to move away from is not, you don't have to accept it, it doesn't matter. Whether you accept it or not, it's still there.
Still what it is.
It's present, whether you accept it or not. The question is whether or not you're going to put it into practice, whether you're not going to use the key of your essence to unlock the.
Okay.
And that's up to you.
So if you don't accept them, you setting yourself.
No, acceptance is not even in question.
If you don't put them into practice.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't put them into practice, does that keep you perpetually in an imbalanced state?
If you don't put, yes, you stay in a perpetual imbalanced state. And you have interludes with balance.
Okay.
And we call that, you know what, yesterday I felt good. Or an hour ago I felt great. And then Ellen walked in the room and everything went to hell. You know? Or I got a phone call. Go ahead, Nick.
When you have good days and bad days.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
where it
okay.
comes from.
That's the interlude. So you have to, you meaning all of us, it is imperative that we fight to maintain that balance. Now this is one of the things that I do want to point out, and then I want to turn it over to Sheldon or whomever to deal with some other stuff. This is one of the things I want to point out. The most difficult place to maintain balance is in your home. And if you really think about your family structure, there are those in your family structure who do not believe as you believe and challenge whatever you believe. Either by word, deed, whatever, that is challenged. But that is necessary because it strengthens you. It forces you to recognize imbalance so you can stay in balance. One of the Aramaic meaning of healing is to bring balance, or to be in harmony, or to restore. So if the people during the time that these principles were being presented, the overwhelming majority of them could not read, they could not write. They had no doctor to tell them to take 2 pills and go to bed and call me in the morning.
Okay.
They had no concept of any disease that could possibly kill you. No concept. They had no concept of cancer, no concept of anything. They had one concept of this: the God that kept me today will keep me tomorrow. That's the concept that they had. So, if that is the one concept, or one of the major concepts that we hold on to, then it gives us a greater opportunity to be aware of the imbalance that's being presented, and it brings us back into balance in a very quick manner. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, if there are no other questions or comments,
John also means Jehovah is a gracious giver,
okay.
or something to that.
And that works right into what we were talking about
Exactly.
in terms of what's being presented here. Because keep in mind, none of this is being presented by Jesus. Jesus received it from Elohim, from Allah. That's what it says, right?
Yeah.
So it's coming through the prophet. And as it comes through the prophet, when we began to articulate it in that is being presented, then not only are you articulating the message of the prophet, but you're becoming prophetic too. And somewhere in there where it talks about the only messenger, or the message, the only message, or something. Anyway, I'll talk about that when I get there. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, first I wanted to talk about reaching balance, or attempts to reaching balance, and things seeming chaotic and getting back on course. I wanted to also relate that I didn't want to get in necessarily a political thing with current events, but I wanted to also explain it when you were just talking about not to get caught up in things. So in regards to all the, even some of the riots that you see, and you see the people marching and things, that in itself is an attempt to reach balance, whether these people know it or not. So even when people who are any type of rebels, the insiders of riots and things like that, these are people who are trying to reach their natural power that all of us possess, but they're in a position of feeling weak. And so this is them trying to gain, I don't want to say gain ground, but this is an attempt to exercise the power that we are. If you get a dog, you chain a dog up on a fence and on a tree or something, you never let that dog out or go. Eventually that dog, more than likely, often is going to become vicious, just because that dog is not being allowed to be as it would naturally. In the same way, those are different things that are taking place. It may look like it when Pastor was just talking about to not get caught up in the chaos, but those particular things are serving their purpose. Regardless of what it looks like with conventional wisdom, they are serving their positive purpose. It's the same thing when Jesus was talking about. I don't remember exactly where. Maybe Pastor, one of you know. He was talking about the chaos, bringing the chaos, the fire, the hell, and things like that. It's the same thing that actually takes place with natural disasters as well. Is a natural way of ourselves bringing ourselves our more natural point of who we truly really are.
So it's a physical
depression?
Of a spiritual principle of unicity that we're trying to achieve, of balance that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and,
Does that
and,
really-
and it's done out of frustration.
yeah.
Because the same viciousness that you talk about in training a dog, you get the same viciousness when you train a dog
Mhm.
to be vicious. So the pack mentality works throughout human nature, period. And pack mentality, for example, and I did not want to get into this because it's something I'm going to use in depth later on. First, let me tell you that the word that's translated and the rain, now the hail, the blood, and the fire, that's in Revelations. But it doesn't say blood actually. It says the hail, the water, and the fire. So, because the fire changes the hail into water. The literal translation, that's what it says. But anyway, I didn't want to get into this, but what happened, the world is divided into gangs. And I didn't want to get into that. America is a street gang. The only difference between America and the Bloods and the Crips is that America make the laws to protect it. But, you know, you come up, get on my turf, we got a problem. I see something I want and I'm going to take it. I see your oil and I'm going to take it. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
How can you sit on TV and be proud of what they call shock and awe? You're looking at what's taking place on that first night, but continues, of course. And I'm sitting there thinking about the terror that these have to be going through. And you sitting here boasting about your might. That's a gang attitude. And again, I don't really want to get into that today because I believe that the ramifications of what's transpiring now are interwoven with the concept that we're going to deal with hopefully on the 20th when we come together as teachers or facilitators, okay? That is one of the reasons I really don't want to get into that. There is a tapestry that's being woven, and it's a tapestry of chaos. And, excuse me, why is chaos presented? Because someone has to bring order. Someone has to bring balance. And we are told repeatedly that it does not take everyone becoming aware of who they are the princes of the kingdom. We can look in the scriptures and see that. Balance doesn't come by numbers. It comes by desire. If there's one righteous man, would you spare the city? You got it?
Yes.
So it doesn't come by numbers. It comes by desire. Awareness is not measured in how much you study or how much knowledge you have. It's how much desire you have. Because we can study all day. And we can sit down and look, you know, 'cause all of us do research. We can do this all day. But research does not mean that you, even though you have the capacity to, it does not mean you're going to exercise that capacity to change. We have to stop complaining about how the news is slanted and begin to embrace the idea that though the news is slanted, the news cannot alter the course of the universe. We can. We can alter the course of the universe.
And the people who make the news know that. And so when the entire purpose of trying to get you to think along certain lines is to tap into your ability to alter the universe in that direction.
And the complaining doesn't.
Hold a minute. Nick, you said in that direction, in the direction of balance, or in the direction they want you to stay where they want to
In
place
the
you?
direction of chaos or,
Okay.
you know, whatever. Whatever would keep us out of a state of balance would prevent them from being put in check. You know, the proverbial. Yeah, doesn't matter.
And our complaining gives life to it. when Israel was in the wilderness, what happened? The murmuring and the complaining. In order for them to move forward, they had to die. So we have to deliver a death knell to our murmuring and complaining, and begin to speak to the sense of order. And you cannot speak to the sense of order if you do not speak what the truth is, regardless of the consequences. You have to say what the truth of the matter is. And that's one of the reasons we find so many references to water, especially in Revelation, but throughout the scripture, but especially in this one book. There are so many references to water because water represents truth. And it's talking about how fluid the truth is, how it flows, how it covers. There is no life without water, and there is no life without truth. In that sense. Okay.
Hello?
Uh-huh.
Hello. Hey, so you touched on desire there for a moment, and I think that's a really, really, really big topic to talk about. And I was wondering if you would talk a little more about building the collective desire, because I feel like that's really key right there, is the collective desire.
Actually, when we talk about it, the collective desire does not include the whole of mankind, because the whole of mankind truly doesn't know what to desire. When Nick was talking earlier about the loom being slanted in order for those who are capable of altering the course of the universe to buy into it in order to continue that course of chaos. When we refuse to buy into it and refuse to give it life, then it begins to die. And the it of which I speak is the chaos and the root causes of the chaos. So when I talk about desire, I'm talking about having a desire to not implement, not understand, but to be the kingdom, to be the principles of everything that the Creator has presented to us. When I talk about desire, I'm talking about a desire to function the way we were designed to function from the beginning. When I talk about desire, I'm talking about the word beginning in in Genesis, where it talks about and he, when he made the male and female, and he said dominate the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That word dominate is makuta, which is kingdom. So be kings over the earth consciousness. Set the boundaries for the earth consciousness. So if we understand that principle, then we also understand that if you set the desires, the boundaries for earth consciousness, then the king does not act for or a consensus. The king speaks and the edict is enforced. That's it. And so when we see the true nature of what we were told to do, now, what am I saying? The whole concept of this earth consciousness is the chaos that we are talking about. And when we who have the desire to function as we were created to function, when we began to do that, then we began to set those boundaries, and we began to usurp the power, and we began to extract the life of chaos, and in essence bring a sense of balance to the consciousness of the earth. Does that help you, Mike? Michael?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Oh, does that help?
Yeah, I just have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, well, the other thing too, in addition to what you're saying, what I'm super present to is, you brought this up earlier, you said that not everybody is awake, if you will. Not everyone has a desire. And one of the things that I have been learning, and I think this might be an interesting topic to talk about, is how that desire amongst the people that know way to look at the strength of the desire is to see the love between the people who know and the connection between those individuals.
That what you just said is the expression that Myra made to me concerning us the last time we were in Philly. And I think I shared it. She said that we are so connected until, even though we are moving in different places, we still move as one. And when we are together, there is an energy that flows between us that she's never experienced before. That's that love. That's that balance. That's that clarity of mind. And I believe that that when we come together on the 20th, and that's what I believe we're going to do, that we will come together as a collective mind, and the board, right? As a collective mind, and the greater clarity, the greater balance that we bring to each other when we discuss what we discuss, it's reflected in the earth, it's reflected in the universe. And I'm beginning to see a couple of things here as I speak. One of which is, ever since 2011, we have been brought together in December, either by my saying I feel it or someone else telling me, as they did with this time in December. Someone told me that they felt that we wanted the facilitators said we need to come together. Then shortly after that, another one said it. So that's one of the things we have been coming together since 2011 in December, and when we come together in December, I believe that the reason we come together is because we have to dealing with the flow of the universe is like turning a huge ship. Do it all at once. It turns slowly, and I believe that when we come together, we are influencing the universe. We're having a huge impact on it, and the second thing that I see is that is the reason why we talk amongst ourselves and just allow other people at that point to talk, because it is necessary for the disciples, it's necessary for the light, it's necessary for those who are the facilitators to be able to balance themselves, to be on the same page, regardless of where we are, regardless of what we're dealing with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that.
So is December like the beginning and the end? The ending of an era and the beginning of an era?
The winter solstice is coming in December. And God, the 20th. It's every time we do that.
And it's kind of like every year even it's talked about in the Bible and in the Jewish tradition, the high priest would say the name of the Creator one time. So it's kind of like you kickstart that whole cycle and infuse light into it so that it can keep going and remain in balance for the rest of the year until you get back to that place where you have the opportunity to sort of reignite it each time.
Okay.
And so it happens at the darkest time of the year, which is December, the winter solstice, because the light has to implant itself in the darkest space that is available to it.
Okay.
In order to both transform that darkness, quote unquote, and also so that something else doesn't do that.
I got you.
Use that space.
Listen, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness covered the deep. Darkness was here before light. So that fits totally into what Nick is talking about.
One of the things I thought about as you were talking about our purpose is to dominate earth consciousness is that's what we have, the chaotic consciousness, and the war is between those who understand what our true purpose is, to dominate earth consciousness and not allow chaos type consciousness to do so. And so it reiterates what you said about, or what Sheldon said about the marching is, you know, what people are doing. The weapons of our warfare are no longer carnal in nature.
Right.
They're mighty through God to the pulling down of those mindsets, those attitudes, chaotic attitudes, and so that's why we couldn't do anything after reacting in a physical manner to certain things that we once responded to in a physical manner.
Even
Can't
after
do
the
it
trip
anymore.
even after the trip on Monday, I couldn't find it in myself to deal with anything in a political, physical way. You know, I was being still now, okay, what we do with this, and now I'm just not beginning to see it. And you keep in mind, a couple of phone calls and we would have been in Florida. Or we
Or
would have
even
been
Haiti,
in,
like
in
even
Ferguson, you know what I'm saying?
big
I
stuff.
said, but I didn't feel like doing anything. And I don't mean I didn't feel like it because I'm lazy. I wish I could be lazy for about 2 weeks though. Go ahead, Sheldon.
The reason why you, there's not the urge to I guess react physically at all is because it's not about anything that you realize. We realize that it's not anything that's physical at all. It's more so of the balance that we're talking about and the conditions of people's hearts and them getting there and things like that, which can be done right there where you at or anywhere for that matter in the comfort of your homes or being that. So I think that is just a recognition also, understanding of the power and the connectivity, I guess you would say that all of that exists, but it's not about what is actually taking place, you know, physically or what you see in the natural eyes. You see and feel, and when I say even see and feel, is something beyond your natural, our regular, like, natural five senses, but that's the reason why.
And now I believe that we have moved beyond that place. When you remember when Nick talked a couple of weeks ago, and some of us were talking amongst ourselves saying that there was something different, something changed. I believe that now we can look retrospectively and see what that difference was. We crossed a bridge from the good days and bad days, or the impulsive things, to a place of spiritual balance collectively, crossing that bridge. You understand what I'm saying? So I believe that that's it. Last week I made a statement that I didn't understand why Nick was the youngest amongst us spiritually, and I the youngest amongst the political. But that's it. And the child shall lead them across the bridge. And the biblical spiritual, same principle, the child shall lead them. So now, whatever child does, moves the political to the spiritual. So it becomes a balanced movement. Does that make sense?
It does.
It becomes a balanced movement. And I think that one of the reasons that I had to attend the memorial and the funeral was that energy there, I needed it in order to transform it, to bring balance to it. And no matter how much I try not to talk about this, we're going to talk about it anyway, right? Some hard-headed people, right? Anybody else? Seriously, anyone else? Okay, Sheldon.
Yes, sir.
What did I ask him?
Asia.
We're talking about
Oh, okay.
Are you Snoop?
Yeah, well, you just led like, as much as I don't want to talk about it, as if you were foreshadowing, like you was about to say something else against your own wills, and so I thought that's where you were going. So I was trying to get extra confirmation. You
No.
threw me off. Maybe I read wrong.
No, that's okay. We gonna UPS your helmet. Go ahead.
So, these particular, the particular places that are associated with the churches of Asia, all of them seem to have people coming from, I guess, different backgrounds, different lands, as in regions of the world, as if it was almost like the 7 continents. But of course, we're talking about a much smaller, concentrated area. The words that are associated with the 7 places, all of them have to do with, well, not all of them, but they lead up with using a lot of things like Lydia, which is travail and strife, dry and barren, violent rushing, wolfland, pitchy, the land of the Gauls was coming from like eclectic like area. And then it also involves the sea. But all of these places are also leading up to Mysia, which is the land of trees, as if all those things are a necessary ingredient in order to get to this more tropical place. Another interesting thing about Mysia is approaching as if all those things are leading to that particular place, which is the land of the beech trees. I also found some other things that I was looking into in regards to other places as well. I just saw that particular part. But it seems like I said, all of these different areas, all these people were dealing with their own, I guess you would say struggle for a lack of better words. And then some type of way putting them together and mixing them up with all these things that are seemingly terribly bad in Revelations are actually leading up to this balanced situation.
One in particular, just for an example, the first one that he speaks to is the one that right.
Mm-hmm.
And the message is, the main theme of that is, you have left your first love. And what have we been taught that the first love was that they left? Jesus. That they left their first love. But that couldn't be further from the truth. If you read it carefully, you will see that their first love was doing the right thing. Defending the weak. Things like feeding the hungry. Those basic things that were necessary. And I think what he's saying here is that the leadership got so caught up in materialism and to the lost sight of his purpose. And when I talk about feeding, I talk about strengthening the weak, that's a two-pronged approach. The strengthening comes from those who are only functioning in this physical realm, but it also comes with our responsibility to strengthen those who are spiritually weak and recognize the need for that strength. So it's a two-pronged thing. And you cannot strengthen people by telling them they don't know what they're talking about. You don't strengthen people by arguing with them. You don't strengthen people by making them feel smaller than you or inferior. That's one of the irritants about people who say we're a word church, and they don't even know what that means. But that's an irritant, but it's also an irritant to the very ones who are were destined to strengthen. And the strengthening comes in various ways. Because James clearly says that if someone is hungry, don't tell me you go pray for them, feed them. Because prayer, in other words, praying is not going to fill them up.
No.
They're going to starve to death while you pray. What is it?
Oh.
No, okay, that's it.
I just have So the 7 churches, Sheldon, you said represent, you said places of people from all across the land, and if the land is consciousness, then the 7 churches represent, you said struggles, but struggles with that type of consciousness that they had, correct? Because land means consciousness, and so the 7 churches represent different types of spirit consciousness that people, I want to say experience, but you said the word struggle with.
Yes, that's at the same time. All of them also would, I guess, in a sense, have the key for the others. So it's as if I'll make it metaphorically. So it's as if there's some huge lock, and it is the key to everyone, I guess, relieving their burdens. But it takes 7 different keys to unlock this lock. And so everyone having to work together to meet and actually helping the others is what unlocks this particular lock for everyone. I don't want to say what I was about to say, but yeah. So it's a way of, I guess, learning, but that particular thing is also making the people of these different regions help the others. But the thing that is very interesting about this particular, I won't say interesting, but the thing about this kind of great, when we go to help others, is the point where our problems that we at least thought we had seem to disappear and no longer exist.
The 7 churches talking about complete consciousness. And the reason I believe that is dealt with in the place where it is because an understanding of this consciousness has to be intact if you're to move beyond this vacillating between the both worlds. Because if you look at it, that's exactly what they were doing. You started out in the spiritual, now you end up fully physical. How many times have we talked about people we've heard, they start out fine, but they end up, writing a book about it, trying to bottle it and sell it. The whole Azusa Street revival thing was about a spiritual awakening. But what happened with that? Men tried to control it. And that's what children do. The things that they don't understand, they either destroy it or they try to control it to make it be what they want it to be. That's what children do. And we have to be at a point of maturity so that we are very careful not to make those same mistakes, not to commit those same errors. And if we do, then there is someone who will pull us back. That's the whole idea of an assembly coming, an assembly discussion, trying to make sense of what we see. Because it doesn't say church, it actually says assemblies. It deals with the assembling of humans and telling those humans, this is what you were doing. You were headed in the right direction, but you got off course. This is the consciousness that we have to have. We have to be conscious of, would you close the door, please? We have to, thank you. We have to be conscious of those things that seem to so easily beset us. And it doesn't take much to nudge us off course sometimes. And then there are times when we say we were blindsided, which means that our mind was not on being balanced or protected, but we're blindsided. You were blindsided so that you can become so in tune with the balance of the universe until regardless of whether you see it coming or not, you still stay in balance. You should not have to see something coming. In order for you to stay in balance. When you are in balance, you are in balance. Period. Now, did Jesus stay in balance all the time? No. He said, go tell those dogs I don't have time for them. As opposed to saying, tell them I don't have time for them.
So he was wrong for calling them dog?
Now, I'm saying he got angry.
I was gonna say, I mean, if they were acting like that, I mean, call a
See,
spade
we
a
have
spade.
we have this problem, this problem with the prophet. We have this issue with the perfection there. If it was so perfect, then he should have started going. He had teeth when he was born and walking after they wiped them off.
Yeah.
You know, we have this issue with that. There is no way in this consciousness that Jesus could have ever been 100% Elohim and expect us to do what he did. He had to be human in order for us to have any expectations of traveling the road that he traveled. He had to be human. There is no getting around it. Anything else is crazy. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't bring balance. It breeds ignorance. It truly does. Because when that happens, you tell on one side of your mouth you're saying we're supposed to do what he did, and over here you're saying we can't do it. At some point, you got to reconcile those two. And I choose to reconcile them with what was said and what was projected, as opposed to some children who translated some scriptures to fit what they wanted to be. Got it? Yeah. And say they're right just because they say they're right. You're not right just because you say you're right. Truth, and this is another thing that gets me. When people say you can translate, you can get anything you want from the book. Everybody translates their way. That's not true. Truth is not that confusing. You may see a different layer, but you don't see a diametric. Does that make sense?
It does.
So yeah, I can just, it's like when I was saying, like, we can't really describe love, but if you've been in love, two people can describe it a bit differently, but they both know what they're talking about, and they both agree. So I don't know.
Go ahead.
The children that you were talking about, I think, everybody don't know it.
Well, last week I talked about how the Europeans translate the scripture, and they were the children who translate the scripture, and they translate to fit what they want. Just like children get upset and throw a tantrum. If you want to get an argument, go to a Southern Baptist church and tell them something is not right. For example, go to a Southern Baptist church and say, how can you say that Jesus is Lord and females can't teach in your church, can't teach men? But you expect them to go into a mission trip and bring people in. So they're supposed to walk past the men? I mean, that just doesn't make sense. But literally translating the scriptures means that you're literally a fool, according to the sages. But that's what's happening here. That's where that comes from.
Okay, sure.
So the whole let me just say this. And I don't know whether I said it before. If I did, it just make me feel good by not telling you.
Okay, we'll say, ooh.
We have, when I say we, I'm not just talking about African Americans and Native Americans. I'm talking about people of color, period. We have been dominated, manipulated, and enslaved based upon scriptures that came from Europeans. Have we not?
Yes.
Have we not?
Yes.
When we left the bondage of slavery, everything changed except our desire to understand what the scriptures were really saying. we continued to preach, to teach, to embrace what we were taught that manipulated and dominated and resulted in death. We've not done that. And if you look into the lives of those who have written the commentaries upon which all of these beliefs are based, you will find that the overwhelming majority of them did not see people of color as anything above animals. That's just the truth of the matter. And the especially Schofield. And when I found out that Schofield, I had the Schofield Bible when I first started preaching, bought one, and I found out that I was reading the notes at the bottom, and I look up stuff and it didn't match, it didn't make sense. And I found out he was a staunch racist. A staunch racist. A hardcore racist.
Okay.
I put it down. And I did not understand then why I put it down. But there was energy there I didn't know it then, of course. So we have to be very, very cognizant of our understandings of what's in the book. The reason that there is so much confusion surrounding Revelation is because no one took the time, seemingly, to just sit and wait for the essence or wait for the Spirit to guide us into understanding. We just took stuff and just ran with it. Because if you say something over and over again, if you say it, they go begin to make sense to folks. They go begin to accept it without question. And that's pretty much what has happened with them. So we have to be very, very cognizant of that. The other thing is that when we talk about Sheldon, those assemblies, and we're talking about Eastern philosophy or understanding being infused into the earth consciousness. Can you see that? Hello? Okay.
And the implication,
You actually see that. I didn't know you was talking to me. Sorry.
and the implication of that Eastern philosophy,
Yeah, because I have
more
some more to
spiritual in
add.
nature, is that?
Yes. And philosophy is a bad word. I should have said Eastern understanding of the spiritual essence of what it is.
Okay.
That's what I should have said.
Sheldon,
Okay. I need all of your help. So in another part of Revelation, later on when he mentions Asia, it mentions I have other names of different cities other than ones that I sent you last week, Pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, I'm going to tell you what the name and what they mean, but some of them also, I found colors associated with some of them, but not all of them.
Sheldon,
So-
before you do that, can I ask a question?
Oh, sure. What's the question?
Going back to your 7 churches, and churches
Uh-huh.
meaning land, could that also
No,
be
assembly.
assembly? I'm sorry, assembly. Can that also be our 7 continents in terms
I mean,
of assembly?
It could easily be by our continents, especially with the number 7 as well. And so that's what I was about to say. All of them have colors associated with them too. So I think on different levels, these are things that are actually repeated throughout, I guess you would say, nature, manifested in many different ways, but it still represents the same exact concept. So it would be equivalent to the same exact thing when Nick was talking about the different chakras a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when they be the colors of the chakra? Okay.
I had a question about why does it say that 7 churches in Asia? Is that what you're getting into?
Yeah, when we
Why
talk
is
about
that significant?
Eastern thought.
Yeah. So all these particular places they're talking about in Asia, they're actually talking about places that were around Turkey. So they are kind of like talking about Asia Minor. But also, like Pastor was just talking about as far as Eastern thought was concerned, this was, I guess, things that were known by everyone, more of the, I guess, the indigenous, more darker people of the area. And I'm not trying to be politically wrong,
China
but
went into Africa.
this was an attempt by certain people, what we've actually gotten translated to us, to understand different things that were kind of foreign to them, and they did not know, understand on a very deeper level. And so that's why we're talking about Asia Minor. Everything, more so the people who presented this to us they learned this from someone else. So we're not getting it directly from the source as it is presented here. And that's the significance with the Asia Minor thing.
I just want to add that Asia Minor was a huge meeting place between East and West.
Right.
So there was so you can have access to all the different spiritual traditions from everywhere.
If you look at that area,
Yeah.
that was the trading route. And when it says Asia, China went into Russia. They had conquered Russia and began to move towards Jerusalem. So during that period, that the understanding of that area would have been Asia. You see? So it would have been Asia. But at the same time, as Nick said, that's where East and West met. Right in that area. And to this day, that's where East and West clash.
Well, just the very words East and West connotes a mixture of varying thoughts, thought consciousnesses,
Yes.
which has the possibility for chaos to enter because everybody has their own point of view, their own way of thinking.
And on the heels of that, if you look at that, you will see that the Islamic or the Christian or the Judaic thought during that period, more prevalent, when I say that period, during the period when China was in control of most of the known world, you would see that the people who were presenting the thought, all of them came from areas around Turkey, Syria. You know, that's the area where all of this took place, and it was I want to say the Syrians who joined with the Chinese. One of those, in order to conquer, the Middle East, but it didn't work out. No, the Christians joined with the Chinese to conquer Israel, or Palestine, I should say, because that's more correct. But it didn't work out that way. And it was in the Eastern thoughts. If you look at Paul's writing, Paul is considered by many of the writers to have softened, or to have changed, or to have made more palatable the of Jesus to Europeans, because of his upbringing, because of his interaction. If you look at the people who wrote the scriptures, look at what we call the ones who wrote, and it's so difficult saying these terms because they mean so much. They're so different meaning than what we've been told. Paul is the one who calls Jesus Lord. Paul is the one who tells you that women cannot teach men. Paul tells you that women must have their hair covered. Well, if Jesus meant and wanted that to be, why was Mary following him? Why were there women in his entourage? So those things that he made more palatable, and thus began the confusion there.
And he also said, he was up front. He said, he was speaking in this, he said, now I'm speaking.
Yeah.
And he would tell you something. So he interjected his own personal thoughts into certain things.
Concerning this, I have no word from the Lord.
And so then we took that as being from the Lord too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are so many things there that we have to, well, not so many that we have to be cognizant. The only thing we have to be cognizant of is that this is a series of books or letters combined to help us to extract from them a spiritual understanding of who we are. And the difficulty that the Western mind had with that is that the idiomatic languages were different. That's what the problem was. When we talk about the whole idea of being the bread of life, that had nothing to do with his body at all. It had everything to do with the essence of the teachings. When it says, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, it has nothing to do with the Father. First of all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Father, are you kidding me? You're not saying a womb, which is Father, Mother. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the teachings. The teachings of. So that's it was in that area that the confusion began to take root, and heaven knows Constantine didn't do nothing to help it.
You know, it's interesting that you're talking about that, because essentially what I hear you saying is that you have this collection of books, and even a part of this collection of, you know, what is believed to be holy books, you're dealing with the ego of man. That's essentially what I heard you saying. What I see is kind of like it's the exact same world that we live in today. So there's the light and there's spirituality, and at the same time there's this requirement to rise above our ego, to rise above our nature, to see what's truly present. That's kind of what I hear you saying.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. I mean, look at the structure today of religious institutions. They're based on ego. One man stands up front, and he is deemed to know it because he's up front. And what happened? The guy who can entertain the best is the best preacher. Or the guy who has been to the most schools and can articulate or regurgitate what he picked up in those schools, he is considered the leader. As opposed to recognizing collective leadership. And honestly, how did the shepherd lead the sheep? The shepherd led the sheep from behind. He guided the sheep with the staff, the chaplain, to keep them in line.
Mm-hmm.
Had he led them from the front, he wouldn't have known what was going on behind. He led them from behind.
That makes sense.
So he could watch and see what they needed. But we try to lead from the front, and as a result of that, it doesn't matter what you need. Take care of me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. And they try to build buildings the size of their ego.
Take care of me. It's compensating.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of leadership, when it says you must be a servant, right? Mm-hmm. How do you serve people when you are telling them what to do for you? How do you serve people when their ideas don't matter? So we have to change our mode of thinking, or have a serious paradigm shift, so that we can, be more adapt to the language of the period? Any questions or statements?
You know what? I do have a question though. I mean, I was listening about the whole idea of the East and the West and so forth, but my question is still around this, and that is, like I get the ideas and, well, I don't fully get the ideas of what the ideas and beliefs that were taking place between the East and the West at that time. But actually what I'm more interested in is from a spiritual perspective, like what I guess what is the I don't know, the energy of the East and or the West from that perspective? That's really what I'm more curious about.
Nick?
The energy from the difference between the energy of the East and the West is Nick. The source of the energy is the same, but the mentality of the people, the personality of the people, and the cultural expression of that energy is different. And so it becomes a little bit chaotic when the two meet because you don't know how to make sense. In other words, how to get back to the source that is behind the sort of cultural and the personality differences. And so part of what Revelation is actually doing is showing you how to get to the truth that is in the Eastern tradition just as well as in the Western tradition if you aren't familiar with the Eastern tradition and how to read it and see behind it. So the energy is the same. And in fact, a lot of people in the West like Eastern tradition so much is because it's so different from what they're used to. It feels like a breath of fresh air energetically. And that's good because the Western tradition is kind of, depending on what your natural preferences are, what your natural personality is, it can be kind of difficult. So when you go and see the Eastern tradition, that can be more pleasant or more attractive to you in terms of the path you want to follow spiritually. But the energy is, the source of the energy is the same. The ultimate place that those traditions are designed to take you or helping take you is the same. It's just the way that they are expressed and the way that they are sort of put together as a system is different.
And could it be that the cultures within the Western system are so veiled? No, the culture isn't veiled. It veils the truth behind so many other distractions and things like that. Whereas the further east you go in terms of thought, it's at least closer to the spiritual, the true spiritual essence.
Yeah, I would
Of a thing.
say it's less veiled. Although both East and West have their version of darkness.
Right.
Yeah.
Understood.
But I will say in the West it's probably better or more explicitly expressed and used with a selfish intention. At least from what we can see. I'm sure it happens in various ways in the East too. But
Well, it does. Look at the outgrowth of Islam and look at the outgrowth of Christianity. Islam is the East, being used in a selfish way. Catholicism, Christianity, is being used in a selfish way. Both of those energies, East and West energies, right? And when you look at Catholicism being used that way, nobody goes to the Baptists or Methodists when they want to understand Christianity. When the last time they interviewed someone on TV when they wanted to understand Christianity, who was Baptist, Methodist, or Lutheran? Who do they interview? Who do they reference? The Catholic Church. Why? Because they go to the root of Christianity. And both those that are now clashing are both clashing because of the outgrowth of selfishness. Richard?
No, my own perception, that's all, so it's not that big a deal. But I think an essence of the difference, which extrapolates out, is, first of all, Asia, we think of Asians as self-effacing and almost meek, but their history is every bit as violent and turbulent as the West. But there is a sense through in the sort of spiritual or religious path to try to keep a connection, I think, to, what do you want to call it, original essence. I think the West gave in very quickly to conclusion. You know, once you got the formula, then you use the formula for other things, and you forget how you got the formula or something to that effect. So it's much more, I don't know how you express that.
And
That's why we say it's more external in Asia, maybe more internal, but it's a sense of whether there's an honoring of, that's why you have more respect for age, you have more respect for wisdom, so to speak, in the East. In the West, it's what can you do with it?
Yeah.
We're very outcome oriented.
And
You know?
materialistic.
What's the solution? Let's get on with it. Asia was like, what solution? What's the problem? What, you know what I mean? And they've tried harder with good, bad success. I mean, you know, they've had their wars, they've had all kinds of domination of this, that, over that, but that's the sense I get. And I think that's why it's a welcome thing for people in the West, because suddenly nobody's sitting there telling you the answers. They're saying, you've got to explore this and trust your instinct.